Today we are gonna make that beef tallow that I have promised you guys for the last couple of videos. So let's just stop talking and let's begin this video on beef tallow. For the beef tallow, we are gonna start with a brisket. When I go to pick up my brisket, I'm looking for the heaviest brisket that we can find. I choose the bigger brisket because we are gonna strip a lot of this fat off and then we're gonna turn that into the tallow. This is more or less a two-part series. We're gonna first make the tallow with the fat that we're taking off, and then I'm gonna show you how I will go ahead and use the brisket in a efficient manner for a lot of people who don't have 18 hours to cook a brisket the proper way. We're gonna start cleaning this up. I forgot to mention, we got this brisket and we put it into the freezer for 2 hours before we started this. It's gonna help start solidifying the fat, which is gonna make it easier to cut through. Also, when you're watching this, yes, this is a brisket, and there are plenty of videos and information out about the proper ways of trimming a brisket prior to smoking. We are not gonna put this onto a stick burning smoker, okay? That's not what we're gonna do. So you have to put this into consideration for what we're doing. Come here, get this decal out. I want to go ahead and start digging into this nice and slow. Don't get too aggressive if you're not very comfortable. Slowly always will win the race, all right? Now this decal here is gonna go way deep into this meat. I'm not going super deep, but I am trying to get a lot of this fat out of here. At this point, I am happy with what we have. We went from a whole brisket, we stripped it of its fat, we leave a little bit obviously for some flavor. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this in half because half of a brisket will easily feed 4 people. I'm gonna come here, go about at half. So we have our point and we have our flat. At this point, we've got our brisket, we've got our fat for our tallow. So let me get this cleaned up and I'm gonna catch back up with you guys. We have put our fat into the freezer for a few hours to let it become harder and not as greasy. And we are gonna start cutting this into smaller pieces in order to be processed further to be rendered. There are 3 different ways in general that you can process this to be rendered. You can cut it into chunks like so. Right? And we're gonna put these pieces into a food processor. That's one way. You can keep them in about the same size, slightly bigger, and you can put them into a grinder if you have a grinder. Or if you have nothing and you're gonna do this by hand fully, you pretty much wanna turn around and cut these into the smallest sizes you can. Okay. It takes more time. And if you want to go smaller, even better. So I'm going to show you using a processor and I'm going to show you using a grinder. So I'm going to have these kind of cut up into just chunks. Now something else to note, if you decide you want to make yourself some tallow, is by no means do you have to go buy a brisket and take the fat off. You can easily go to your butcher store, ask for beef suet, get a few pounds of it, and process it just like we are right now. This would be your starting point. I have my beef suet cut into smaller pieces, so it'll be easier to further process in the grinder or the processor. While I set up everything else, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this back into the freezer or in the refrigerator, your choice. I'm gonna render the fat in a slow cooker. You can easily do this over the stove in a pot. It's just gonna be something that you need to observe more closely and be more active with during the process, but it's very possible. If you're gonna do it on the stove, you have to keep it on low and really watch what's happening with the fat because you don't want the rendered product to start to burn. So a surefire way is to use a slow cooker. We're now gonna demonstrate processing the fat through a food processor. You don't want to overload too much, and we're going to pulse it. This is pretty perfect. It will take obviously a little bit longer the colder that the fat is, but it is better this way because if your fat isn't cold, once your machine starts to warm up and this fat starts getting flipped around, it's going to start to melt and it becomes for a big mess. So even at that point, bring out half the fat, keep half in the refrigerator or the freezer, or this into here. We are now going to show this out of a grinder. Quite a bit faster with the grinder. We are now going to start rendering the beef fat. We've got our fat in the slow cooker. Slow cooker is on high. If you're going to put a lid on it, you don't have to. At least leave the lid cracked so that way condensation can leave. And at this point, just continue on with whatever you're doing. We're going to come back and we're going to check it in about an hour. So we're coming back to check the fat 1 hour in on high. We're just going to come in, start mixing everything around. We'll give it another 45 minutes to an hour and we'll come back and check it again. So we are officially 2 hours in. At an hour and a half, I went ahead and I gave it a quick stir again. Now that we're 2 hours in, we're going to stir it again. Perfect. Temperature is still on high at this point. Every about 30 minutes, just come in, give it a quick stir. We have a slight simmer going on at hour 4. It still looks good to me. I'm good. We're going to give it a stir. Beautiful. Hour 7. We're almost there. 7 hours and 15 minutes later, the beef soot is rendered down into our tallow. We have a metal bowl, we have a strainer, and I have cheesecloth to strain this from. Okay? This is pretty hot. I'm just going to grab this. We're going to pour it through the strainer. I want to get all these little crispies into here. This is very hot. Go ahead and let all those little crispy bits hang out in the cheesecloth. This is going to be hot, so make sure you wear some kind of disposable glove because you are going to squeeze this to extract the rest of the fat that's left in it. Whoa, mamacito. This is hot. Oh, okay, nope. A few minutes later, we're going in for another twist. Whoa, baby. Hang tight. Oh, that's hot. We're giving it another break. We're going to go ahead and give it another squeeze. Super hot. Be patient and just keep it going on the squeezing. You're going to squeeze. It's going to be hot. Squeeze what you can. Give it yourself a break. Squeeze again. Keep getting what you can out of your product. I don't know how this somehow slipped out of here. Very sneaky, but this is our finished product. We have a couple pint-sized jars here. We are going to go ahead and ladle these into these. If you want to use another smaller strainer, you by all means can. You want to put that strainer and or cheesecloth or one of the vice versa, you're totally welcome to do that as well. We're just going to go ahead and ladle this delicious gold in here. After straining this tallow out, we've come to 4 pints of tallow, which equals to 2 quarts. We did have a little bit extra from what we got here. I went ahead and put that into another pint jar of used tallow that I already use on a regular basis. So there is a little bit more than this, but this was overall the finished product. I'm gonna go ahead and let these sit for a little bit without the tops on because I want it to cool down. I don't want to cover it, put it in the refrigerator. That promotes growth of bacteria. So I'm just gonna let this sit right now and allow it to cool just a little bit. Here we have bacon, I'm sorry, hello. Here we have bacon, I'm sorry. Here we have beef fat, which we turn into tallow. This is one of the purest, best fats that you can use. It would be expensive if you were to purchase it. I wouldn't call it the cheapest product on the market. It's not something comparable to a seed fat, but it is a amazing OG status fat that you would use. The first 3 we have here are in the process of cooling. I took this one, I threw it in the freezer to solidify, to show you the finished product. If you're interested to see what we did with the meat that we got the tallow from, it'll probably be posted up in the next day or so of how we cooked that brisket in general. As always, you guys have yourself a blessed day, and thank you for watching.